presenting choices in visual ways as well, and other being brief and calm with your presentation.
Yeah.
But basically, it is important to clearly state beforehand what the consequences will be, so that that young person knows what they're in for. I think of it sometimes, I've used it with kids one-on-one as just the idea of the snakes and ladders, because sometimes they get so overwhelmed and they get in trouble all the time, and they're just sick of school and sick of everything. But when you tease it out, they don't always know what they've done wrong.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to get on the good side of the teacher. So I like to talk about it as, you can easily slide down the snakes, but there are also ladders if you know what they are. And if teachers clearly explain what those ladders are, what the steps are for them to do the right thing, then it gives them more control, because they hate being controlled. They like to be in control themselves. But that's also part of good management strategy too, is to equip the teachers. So, and also avoiding confrontations, especially if their peers are there. So wherever possible, to address misbehaviour privately or quietly in subtle ways. Some teachers use, gestures or just simple visual signs. So, because they're really defensive, easily defensive, and then they'll go into blame mode that it was someone else's fault or the teacher's fault. So, helping them to own their behaviour by not embarrassing them in front of their peers and not confronting them. And the usual use of calming strategies, because once they're heightened and they reach that anger threshold, you're not going to be able to reason with them. But if you've worked out already what will keep them calm, what will be useful in the classroom, in the playground, put that into place early, preferably to avoid. But if you end up with an escalation, to just step back, just step away, to give them time, rather than confront them or argue with them. Avoid the threatening, because all that revs them up. They're used to going into fight mode. So even convincing, because that requires a rational mind. If you're trying to convince them why they need to do something and they're heightened, it generally won't work.
That's very interesting. With that, do you think in a classroom with someone with this disorder, do you think working in smaller groups as well can help them, or do you think once they're at that point, there's no going back to their
they're geared for winning, if once they get to that point. And the smaller group would seem easier to manage than the whole class setting. But again, with their sort of tendency to blame others, to be a bit vindictive. So it's, I guess, careful choice of who you put them with. And, there are times that someone with a diagnosis like ODD will get extra funding, and that's part of our role as school counsellors, is to use the diagnosis to argue the case that they need extra funding because of their needs in curriculum, in communication, in social competence, and in safety that is harm to themselves. So even though with ODD they often might be aggressive to others, it can also be a case of underlying, there may be self-harm, there may be anxiety, there may be lots of trauma that's happened in the past or current. So helping them to keep safe. But if you can argue that those students need extra support, then you may get funding, and then there may be an SLSO who works. So that as the teacher, they can allocate a small group with that child with ODD and the SLSO to just supervise.